One of the reasons we wanted to retell the story of Esther is that we were getting more and more letters saying, hey, how about a girl? A lot of guys going on here, you know, can't you give my daughter a really good vegetable role model?
Originally, we wanted to do a story with a female heroine from the Bible. And so, you know, Esther and Ruth were, you know, jumped to the front of the pack. And I started researching both of those stories and landed on Esther just because it just was such a great story about courage. The whole flow of the story was just very cinematic. I mean, it just had a great storyline and a great ending. I kind of landed on the idea of, you know, telling it as a sort of a Prohibition era type of story, sort of a Godfather-esque kind of thing. And even some of the scenery, like you know, when you go into the king's chamber, you know, you look behind him and you see the horizontal blinds, you know, kind of arranged in the same way that the Godfather's blinds were, you know, in the original Godfather movie. But just sort of getting that gangster feel to the film and just having fun with that.
With Esther, we really were going for a cinematic feel. We were trying to make kind of a mini feature film.
Esther was a big step for us because we knew we eventually wanted to get into movies. And to do a movie, we wanted to produce a more legitimate story, a deeper, broader story, and see if we could pull it off.
The character development, you know, was a little bit richer than we had done before. The sets were a little bit more elaborate. The music was more elaborate. And so we wanted to take a step toward making a film.
We wanted to see how can we push our camera work, how can we push our lighting, you know, to have the confidence to go into Jonah and know that we can pull that off.
Esther was a challenge in regards to we wanted to go a little bit more on the serious side, a little more dramatic, and we wanted to introduce a new character. It was fun because we worked with a character that we tried to develop a little bit more reality into her hair, even though it was a challenge technically, and to develop a little bit different facial features for her character. And we went round and round in what we could do in regards to the kind of vegetable that we should use and how we should change her movements. And she was a real challenge in a lot of ways.
When we were designing Esther, we went from kind of just a plain girl to like this beautiful Hollywood starlet. We can't use that. Who's going to relate to that? You know, we want someone that everybody can relate to. And my daughter, Sarah, posed for me at home. I just noticed how the hair would always fall on her face. I said, that's very interesting. So I started to draw this, and I said, honey, just sit right there. I want to draw you because I'm designing Esther. So she sat there, she's moving her hair back and forth. So I'm sketching. Okay, Dad, let me see. So I finally show it to her. She goes, that doesn't look like me, that's a vegetable. But it had all those elements of her in there. And taking those little elements from life, from a real child, and bringing them into the story just makes it so much more believable. But it was a nightmare on the animators because, you know, are you sure you want to have that hair go over her high? And the lighting kept having shadows over the face that we didn't want.
We wanted her to look special. We wanted her to look charming. We didn't want to just take another pickle and put eyelashes on it. And we wanted her to look attractive as much as we could and be engaging for little girls.
So it was a headache, it was a nightmare, but it looked beautiful when it was all done.
For there is nothing we can't face when God is at our side.
As I look back, it's kind of interesting thematically to look at what we chose to address in conjunction with what we were going through at the time. For instance, you know, we chose We're Scared When I'm Scared for the first video, which I think is very appropriate as we're starting out on this big adventure, terrified. And then, you know, a couple videos later is The Little Guys Can Do Big Things Too. And I know as we had a few videos out there after a while, and Phil's dream kept getting bigger about how he wanted to help the world and impact culture, I'm sure he felt a little small in proportion, and then out comes that song. And Esther, The Battle Is Not Ours, that song, is really, even still to this day, very, very meaningful. The words of the battle is not ours, we look to God above, for he will guide us safely through and guard us with his love. I will not be afraid, I will not run and hide, for there's nothing I can't face when God is at my side. And that was a time, I believe, in Big Ideas history where we had grown. We were a different kind of company than when we started and we were 3 guys in an office. I think that came out of how he was feeling at the time, and it was just I think he wrote it for himself, and then the rest of the world, we got to benefit a little by it.
No, there is nothing I can't face when God is at my side.
The Battle Is Not Ours was a very powerful song for me to work with. It had a very haunting melody, and I wanted to pull as much out of that song as I could. It was a fun challenge and a very powerful song to be able to work with.
And it really affected me. I mean, just the lesson of that story, researching it, you know, and you know, turning it into a VeggieTales story, you know, it really impacted my life. It's just because it's such a powerful, powerful story.